everyone! This month's theme is all about finding peace through our art. So the scene that we're painting in this lesson, it makes me want to sit on the park bench and enjoy the quiet crispness of a late fall afternoon. We're going to be working with a classic landscape triad of orange, green, and purple, and playing with perspective and light. For those of you watching on YouTube, this first part of the lesson is available here. To see the rest of the lesson, head on over to my Patreon. Membership is only $5 a month, and you get complete lessons, exclusive content, product reviews, and more. I'll put the link in the description. I hope to see you there. And now, let's head over to the easel and get dusty. Taped up. Today I am using UArt 400, and I have it taped a little bit narrower than the full width because our reference image is a little bit narrower, so I didn't want to have to try and spread it out a little bit. For my underpainting, I'm going to do an underpainting today. I'm actually going to use these water-soluble oil pastels. So normally oil pastels and soft pastels do not work well together. You cannot put soft pastel over top of oil pastel. But because these are water soluble, they're not made with the same type of wax. So you can use these with pastels. And I like them because they provide a nice color for a background without filling up the tooth. So you can also use, let's see, you could also use watercolor paint, acrylic ink. You can use pastels, and then if I use pastels, which I do sometimes, I'll get them wet and use that to kind of like stain the paper. So you can use all kinds of things for underpaintings, and I like to experiment and try different stuff. So I thought today would be fun to just kind of play around with these. So I'm just using them to kind of block in some of my color areas that we have going on. Here's a little path kind of cutting through. And I'm just roughing these in. Now, the trees, I'm going to use two different colors for my underpainting for the trees. I'm going to use kind of this, it's like a warm green for a couple of these. Coming down, sorry, my easel's moving. We've got, I'm just gonna establish some of the bigger ones in the background. I'm not gonna put all the branches and everything in with my underpainting. And then I'm gonna use this dark purple. This is like a violet purple for this one, kind of in the back, and some of these other ones. And then the rest of this, I'm gonna just fill in with this orange. And orange, purple, and green are a real classic color combination, especially for landscapes. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards these three colors. They'll be the bulk of the colors in the painting. Obviously over the sky will lighten up and add some of the orange in there. So at the end of this is going to be a lot of orange, purple, and green. So now to blend this out, I'm going to grab a stiff bristle brush. This is just kind of a chip. You can use a chip brush or any kind of stiff bristle brush. This brush is clean, even though it's pink, it is washed off. And you can use water or you can use rubbing alcohol. So I'm actually going to use the rubbing alcohol because it dries a lot faster than the water does. And you just want to spritz that on and then start blending your oil pastels into the paper. I'm just going to try and stick to the same color, and then I'm going to wipe my brush off. Just grab a paper towel and just kind of wipe it off before I go to the next color. And this doesn't have to be perfect. If it drips, that's all right. We're going to be painting over it. So it's not critical that this is perfect. Oh, I forgot to do this blue. So obviously this is the main little road here. That's more of a gray tone, but just using the blue just to simplify things. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry and then I will be back in a minute. Okay, we're all dry, ready to get to work. So I am gonna start with just putting in my lighter blue here for my sky. And I'm gonna get it in between the trees a little bit. I will come in after we get more of the branches put in and really do a lot of sky holes. But for now, just want to get this in. All right, now my trees, I'm going to come in with a cooler green. And it's a pretty dark shade. I just want to kind of establish the main trees in our landscape here. We kind of have a combination of the warm underpainting on that green and then this cooler green on top. And then coming in with my purple. So this is a much grayer purple than the one that I used for the underpainting. That's just to tone it down just a little bit. All right, now I'm just gonna very softly blend in my sky because I'm gonna need to go over this color, and I don't want it diluting the colors I'm putting on top of it. And if I have too much pastel on the paper, it's going to lighten the color as I layer. So that's a fun thing about pastels is we do a ton of layering, but you have to be smart about it. If the color on the bottom is kind of dusty, where if you touch it, it gets on your finger very easily, it's going to have an impact on the color you lay on top of it. So that's why I'm just blending it out. And you can still see that darker blue kind of coming through, just giving it a little bit of life and interest. Okay, so now for this path in the front, I'm just going to use kind of a little bit of a more gray blue. Again, I'm just lightly, lightly getting these colors in here. Now there is a bench that we're gonna put in, and I'm just gonna use this same gray. Just kind of get that established. Well, that's not where I want it to go, and that gray is too purple. So I want to remove that line I just did, and luckily this underpainting is really pushed into the paper. Even if I had done that with pastel, the underpainting, and then wet it and rubbed it in, this method would not take that off. So that's one of the things I love about doing a wet underpainting, is it stains the paper and it won't interact with the colors you put on top. So I didn't really care for that angle. So I'm actually going to use a pencil and just kind of put this in. I'm good at drawing landscapes on the fly, but these more geometric things, I tend to do better when I have them sketched. All right, so I'm gonna actually end up moving my path down a little bit, or maybe I'll give it a bit of a curve so that the bench isn't right on top of it. Not a big deal. All right, so now that I have that sketched in, I'm gonna come in with this gray. And it is a little bit too purple, that's all right. This is just a placeholder. And I'm not going to put the legs in because they're going to end up getting covered up, and I don't want to cause trouble for myself with blending. So, all right, and now I'm just going to establish some of our orange. There's a lot of leaves on the ground back here. I'm not going to go up too high because as we go up, we start getting into the branches, and I want to leave that lighter, just a lighter touch where I can play a little more. I know this area down here is more of the darker color with the leaves, few leaves scattered. So we'll do some blending and playing down there. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my trees. Now I wanna get some of this more mossier tones in here. And the trees are definitely lighter on the bottom parts than they are on the top. It's just the way the sun is interacting in our scene. So I'm going to bring in a really dark green, our upper branches, and then I can use this for some of the striations that we see in the bark. It's just some light touches. saving the lightest green for the front, because our sun is behind and coming this way. So you really want to pay attention to where the lighter and the darker areas are on these trees. So the lightest on this big one is in the front because of the way the tree is shaped, and then on these other ones it's on the side a little more. All right, now for our purple tree. So I didn't quite get his shape right, so I'm gonna get a little more of a bend on this guy. I'm using a couple different shades of purple here. So I've got a reddish purple and then one that's a little more purpley purple. And there really isn't any details showing on these purple trees. So you want to be careful not to overdo it. I'm just getting some of the edges in, just on the sides of these trees, just to help our eyes really see where they live in this space. Coming back in with this bluish green. I'm just gonna gently touch and kind of just establish a little bit of some vertical feeling in this front one. So this bark is very old, it's twisty, so you don't want to be too perfect with it. And you also want to have a counter to the darkness of the bark. So you do want to bring in some lighter marks. We have this knot right here. So I'm just gonna kind of draw in that little circle. Come back in with my darkest green. And we got our highlight on top of it. Just keep playing with this till I get it where I want it. And I just want to establish just this really light area here. You can tell that there's some moss growing on this tree. This one also has this kind of this lighter edge here. Just blending that with the other light green, so it's not just a harsh line there. This one in the back is quite a bit darker. I don't know why in my brain this one was behind this one. That doesn't make any sense, does it? So I'm going to switch those around. There we go, that makes more sense. This guy in the front now. I'm just gonna widen him out a little bit. So yeah, you don't have to exactly follow your reference photo, which I'm obviously not doing. That's okay. It's more important that what we're painting makes sense to the eye. And if you make a little mistake, it's no big deal. Just go in and play around with it until it makes sense again. I think just to help differentiate these guys, I'm gonna make this one in the back also this purple tone. All right, so I'm gonna bring in this purple gray. In this area. To establish our ground. And I'm going to very lightly go over the blue I put down for this walk as well. I'm struggling with this pastel. It has it's like a lump on it that doesn't want to color. I will use the other side. Gonna blend this out again, trying to knock some of the pastel off the paper so that I can put more details on top of it. But we're still really rough, very much in the rough early stages here. Now you see how this purple looks completely different over the orange versus over that blue. Alright, so I'm just going to work on our path here. So first thing I want to do is change the curve of it a little bit. So I'm going to go to this dark purple. This is the original darker purple I used for that tree back there. just gonna put in our little edging here. So we have our shadows from our trees, which are coming across this way. And this whole area here is darker. Got some darker in the inside. I'm going to retape the bottom piece of tape here, because it got wet from that alcohol. Go. Let's see if it'll stick better. All right, now I need to bring some orange into this part, because remember I have moved the path and I don't want it to look weird. So I'm going to take this lighter purple, just going to use this to mark out where this edge is. So this is it. It's definitely gray, but it's a purple gray. We want that lightness of these boards. So they are, they look like 4x4s maybe or something. They're square shaped. So just want to establish a horizontal plane and a vertical plane. So I'm just going to put a few little like edges where one board meets the next, and then using that little V that I've just created to kind of create a top and a side. So we want this to look a little bit 3D. I'm just going to come in with my darker purple here and kind of reestablish these. So when you're working, if you're not 100% sure of where you want to put things, you can always do it with a lighter color and then go over it with something darker. All right. So looking at my gravel now. It's going to very lightly come in here. All right, so I'm going to use a little bit of a cooler gray in here. And what I'm trying to do now is just establish a texture. I want this to feel gravelly. And then we'll come in, we'll get our shadows for the trees back in here. We'll get the little leaves. We'll get some of these, you know, kind of individual rocks we have. And I'm just layering very gently lights and darks in here. And I'm trying to be kind of random with it. I'm doing a lot of tapping. So we don't want this to look like there's a pattern. We don't want it to look intentional. It should be more random. And this is a very, very soft pastel. This is a Great American, extra soft. And when you tap these extra soft pastels, a lot of times you can get this nice texture. All right, and now I'm just going to tap in with a darker. This is a greenish gray. And this is what I'm going to use for my shadow areas. I'm not really dragging. I'm doing a very, very light drag and a tap. Went a little too far down, so just wanted to correct that a bit. Now I know in the photo, these pieces are not darker on this side. They're all the same color. But I think that makes it harder for us to perceive them as 3D. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of a shadow on this side of them. increase this color contrast between the shaded areas and the non-shaded areas. So instead of tapping now, I'm actually rubbing, but I'm rubbing so lightly because I don't want to color this in. I don't want it to become solid. I just want to add this shadow in here. And I'm going to come back in with my light. And then my light gray, I'm going to get on the tops of these. We'll come in later with our detailing and kind of make these not so perfectly smooth. All right, so this area, this ground is a lot darker. It's probably more of a dirt than gravel. So I'm coming in, this is another dark violet. It's a little warmer. All right, so our bench. So again, we have these kind of, you know, they're 2x4s or some kind of lumber. All right, so this is the dark green I was using up in these trees. So reusing your colors in different places really helps tie your painting together. It's called color echoing or color mirroring. And it's a really good way, like I said, it ties everything together, but it also means you don't need to have as many pastel sticks in your collection. And yes, I have a huge collection of pastels because I have a problem and I probably need 12-step program to help me with it. But I try to limit the number of colors I use for each painting. It's very easy and very tempting to just kind of go crazy and you know, use a million different colors for stuff, but it's not productive. And I think it kind of takes away my ability to blend, because then I start to rely on just finding the perfect color. And a lot of times that's not going to happen. You know, that perfect color's not out there. So it's really helpful to have the ability to layer and create the colors that I need from the colors I have versus just constantly grabbing more colors. So all right, so there's obviously some color difference. I've, you know, kind of gotten rid of that little path in the background there. Decided I don't want to put that in. So I'm just gonna make this little bench area, tree area here, just a little bit wider. Gotta give people more room to sit, you know? So I just added some orange in there to kind of bring it on par with the rest of this area. Okay, so our tree shadow. So first of all, I need to establish where the bottom of this tree is. So it comes down like that. This guy is about there. So I'm going to get my green back in here. Now I'm using two different shades of dark green in here. I'm using this cooler and a warmer. And I'm doing that to help establish kind of where the light is hitting. All right, so now that I'm looking at this, I'm not a big fan of this right here, because we have the end of the tree, or the end of the bench running right into the end of the tree, and they both kind of end here on this line. And now we have this big empty area over here. So what I'm gonna do is move my bench down a bit and end it like right in there. And then I'll think about what to do with the tree because it's still all in line. So I don't know if I'm going to shorten the tree up. I think I'll shorten the tree up, but so here is a lesson on how to kind of reverse course when you've made a mistake and you need to get your pastel off the paper. So first thing I'm going to do is come in with a stump. So you could also use a stiff bristle brush for this, but I'm using a stump because it gives me more accuracy. Can also obviously use an eraser, which I might end up bringing out. We'll see how well this comes off. The stumps, a lot of people think of a stump as a blending tool, and it is a blending tool, but it also is really good at taking pastel off of paper. And I don't know if you can tell, but there's a color difference now between the areas that I've worked with the stump, and that's from the pastel that's been removed. So now, is this the same gray? Yep. All right, so I'm just gonna come back in and get my bench put back where it belongs. And then over here, oops. I'll start with some orange. The orange will really help to cancel out this gray too. All right, so you can see how good that worked. You know, obviously there's still work to be done on the whole thing, but so it's not that difficult to fix mistakes on pastel, which it's a very forgiving medium. All right, and then I'm just going to shorten up this tree just a bit. All right, so I think that looks okay. That's better. I'm happier with that. All right, so let's work a little bit on just blocking in some of this in the background before we end for today. So I'm gonna use a little bit of a darker orange so that I can put lighter colors on top of it. Especially in this area back here where we have all of this orange foliage and all these leaves poking through. I'm just using a real light hand. I don't want to like set this into the paper. I want to keep it light. so I think we're in a good place to end this lesson. We'll come back to this and finish it up. So there's some, obviously, lots of things we need to do here yet. The shadows, I'm not really a fan of the angle that they're at. So I think when we come back, I'm going to want to play a little bit with our shadows. Obviously finish up our bench and our background, and then get in all the little details here, because this, you know, this needs to look like gravel. We need to get the leaves on the ground and, you know, just keep playing with this. But I think we're in a good place to stop for now. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this part of the lesson, and I will see you for part 2. Take care.